Hello everyone, back tuning into today's second video. We're going to have a look at weather for the next week to 10 days for today's second video. It takes around 23rd of November, so we're well into the second half of the month. Actually go a little bit beyond that with the extended GFS and the CFS V2 as well. So we've got more mild weather to come through the rest of this week, but the weekend we'll start to see the temperature cooling down, not going cold, but cooling down over the weekend, going back closer to average. And then next week, I think the signs are increasingly that we're going to bring cold air in from the east. Difficult at the moment to say how cold it's going to get. It is very early in the season, so it's not going to be a beast from the east. It's not going to be like we had back in March, when we had that sub-zero, those sub-zero temperatures and all of that snow. So it won't be as bad as that, but it certainly will feel a lot colder next week as those easterly winds pick up. And it really is a pattern that is very interesting with this, because it does look as though we're going into an increasingly blocked setup in the next sort of week to 10 days. So I'm going to talk you through all of the latest developments right now. Just to say that earlier on this afternoon, we released the ECMWF 30-day forecast for the UK and the Europe too. That's taking us into the early part of December, so have a look at that and see what you think. Just going to say a big thank you to our latest donor and patron. So we'll start off with patron first of all. So we now have 38 patrons for Gazworthies. Trying to get to 40 before the end of the year. Big thank you to all of the patrons for Gazworthies. So Freddie Walker has become Gazworthy's latest patron. So a big thank you to Freddie for becoming our most recent patron for Gazworthy's. If you would like to become a patron for Gazworthy's, all you have to do is come to Gazworthy's Patreon page. This is it. We link to this on all pages at Gazworthy's and in the description at YouTube. Just come here, sign up for a Patreon account, and then you can pledge any amount of money from $1 a month upwards to Gazworthy's. And it's not like an ongoing monthly donation from $1 a month upwards. And by doing that, you become a patron for Gazworthy's. You will get a official mention in the videos. You get a thank you and a shout out in the videos, just as Freddie has just done. So you'll get a mention in the videos, unless you'd rather stay anonymous. That's absolutely fine if you'd rather do that. So that's how you become an official patron for Gazworthy's. I've also got to say a big thank you to our latest PayPal donor. So our latest PayPal donor is Neil Smith. So again, big thank you to Neil Smith for becoming Gazworthy's latest donor. And again, if you would like to become a donor for Gazworthy's, get a mention in the videos. And this is like a one-off thing. So you just come to Gazworthy's.me PayPal page. You sign into your PayPal account. Most people have one of those these days, and then you can just send whatever amount of money you would like to Gazworthy's. And again, you are helping us to pay for our website and keep all of the content completely free as you want it. And that's great. Big thank you to Neil and to Freddie for doing that. Big thank you to all of our patrons, all of our donors. It does mean a great deal to you, all of you, for what you're doing for Gazworthy's. So again, a big thank you to all of you for doing that. And again, I haven't plugged this for a little while, so while I was doing this, I thought I'd mention Gaz Shop. So if you've got any Christmas shopping to do at Amazon between now and Christmas, all you have to do is come to the Gaz Shop page. This is it. Again, link to this on the pages at Gazworthy's. So you just come here, and then you can either search for whatever Christmas present you would like to buy in the Amazon search widget just there, or you can click through any of the Amazon banners that you see on the page there. Go through to Amazon, just buy your Christmas presents at Amazon. And again, because you're going from Gazworthy's to Amazon, we will get a revenue fee on the things that you are buying. And a big thank to everybody for doing that once again this year for Gazworthy's. We've still got plenty of time to get Christmas presents in, but that's what you need to do if you want to help support the website. So a big thank you to all of the donors, big thank you to all the patrons, and a big thank you to all of the Amazon shoppers through Gazworthy's. Right, next thing I'm going to show you is this. So this was sent to us by Liam Kenwood in Maidstone. So big thunderstorm took place last night in Maidstone in Kent. Liam managed to get that capture fantastic lightning shot there down in Maidstone. So really dramatic looking clouds as well going on with that thunderstorm last night. You don't really associate November with thunderstorms because you can get thunderstorms and lightning at any time of the year if there's enough instability within the atmosphere. You can even get it when it's snowing in the middle of winter, and that's always one of the most spectacular looking weather phenomena when you get thunder snow. But anyway, big thank you to Liam for sending that picture through. If you would like to send your weather pics to Gazovids, then there are a few ways you can do it. You can post them in the comment box at Gazovids. You can tweet them to us at our Twitter handle, which is twitter.com/Gavin Partridge. There's the Facebook page, you can share them on there, or you can email them to us at gazovids@gmail.com. And if you have time, we're always happy to feature your weather pics in the video, so big thank you to everybody for doing that. Right, so let's get on with the Arctic Oscillation Observed and Forecast chart, because this is depicting a change that is on the way. So the black line here shows where we've been with the Arctic Oscillation. The red line's at the end where the GFS sommels are forecasting the Arctic Oscillation to go. So we've been for a very positive phase of the AO, going right way back into the summer. We can see that the black line's generally been in positive territory. There have been a few occasions where we've gone a little bit negative. Change took place late in October when we had that cold interlude at the end of October, and we did see the AO going rather negative then. Through the early part of November, going back into weekly positive territory. Where we are right now is negative again. But look what the GFS ensembles are doing. After a very brief lift up towards neutral, they are collapsing, really collapsing the Arctic Oscillation into the second half of the month. There are some very negative members of the GFS ensembles there in terms of the AO, going down to a really, really negative level indeed. So remember, it's just an index that's reflecting the state of the atmosphere. It's not driving it, it just tells you what the atmosphere is doing. And when the AO is positive, you've generally got low pressure up over the pole. And so this time of year, that's a signal to have a strengthened westerly zonal flow. But when the AO is negative, you'll have high pressure blocking up over the pole. Blocking is a route to pushing cold air out of the pole and down into the mid-latitude. So when you see the AO sort of crashing like this that we see, that is a signal for quite a bit of high pressure to be over the pole, quite a bit of blocking. And this time of year, that would be a case of watch out, because somewhere is going to get really quite cold when you see the AO going into that sort of negative territory. The NAO looks like it's also on the move as well. So again, the black line here shows where we've been with the NAO. Red line's at the end where GFS sommels are forecasting the NAO to go. Back into the summer, very prolonged positive phase of the North Atlantic Oscillation all the way back into July. We can see that we've been in a prolonged positive phase of the AO. If we could go further back on this chart, we'll probably see that even since May, as far back as May, we've been in a very prolonged positive NAO phase. A change again took place at the end of October, where the AO went negative, so too did the NAO. We've gone weekly back to weekly positive or NAO neutral condition over the past week or so. GFS ensembles are forecasting us to stay initially on the slightly positive side of neutral, but again we see many of these ensemble members really going for a crash in the NAO as we go in towards the final week to 10 days of November. Big changes within the atmosphere are being depicted there when you see the AO and the NAO being forecast to go as negative as they are by the GFS model and its ensembles. So it is going to be a case of watch out. The atmosphere is getting itself into a much more blocked setup with high pressure over the northern latitudes, high pressure over the pole, and that produces, moves the high pressure down towards Iceland, and then you tend to get a corresponding area of low pressure around the Azores. When that happens, you can find that you can lock in to quite prolonged cold conditions. So big changes on the way depicted by the NAO and the AO. These are the GFS ensembles. We're looking at Norwich today. So the red line here is a 30-year upper air temperature average for Norwich. We've got more mild weather to come. Before you get anything colder, we're going to have increasingly milder, even quite warm weather over the next few days. Given a bit of sunshine on Thursday or Friday, temperature could well reach 17 or 18 degrees Celsius. There probably will be increasing amounts of low cloud and fog, and where they linger, that will limit temperature potential a lot. But in theory, temperatures could reach around 17 or 18 degrees if there's enough sunshine sometime around Thursday or Friday. But from the weekend onwards, we see the temperature is lowering, initially going down to average, and then, well, it looks like increasingly cold really as we go into the final week to 10 days, or final week of November. Increasingly cold signals from the GFS ensembles. Precipitation-wise, very dry for the next week. No precipitation at all. And then we find the rainfall or the precipitation spikes appearing. That is as we pick up an easterly wind and we bring low pressure in from the south and from the east, and with cold temperatures there may even be a little bit of wintry potential in there as well. Again, don't think we're talking about widespread snow or blizzards. This is not the beast from the east. It's not what we had at the beginning of March, the end of February. The reason, again, is that we're very early in the season. Europe is pretty warm. It's not cooled down yet. Whilst the continent can cool down very rapidly at this time of year, and I think it will cool down very rapidly over the next week to 10 days, by the way, because much of northern and central Europe is going to get very cold. But whilst that can happen, it's not going to be a big freeze. It's not talking about a big freeze at this point. If these abnormal weather patterns were to continue, of course, into, say, late December or early January, then we'd be talking about big freeze type conditions. At the moment, we're just talking about appreciably colder, particularly compared to what we have had. Temperature anomalies for the next week, going from the 13th of November to the 21st, are forecast to be milder than average of the UK and Ireland. No sign of those dropping yet. I can show you the mean surface temperatures for week 1. This based on the GFS model, which is the 13th to 21st of 21st November. So most parts of Europe again looking relatively mild during week 1. The cold conditions are really pinged in across the west of Russia. But if you go to week 2, look how much colder things are looking in week 2. Those blue colours are surging across many parts of Europe. It's also turning a lot colder for the UK and Ireland as well. And so that's why the temperature anomaly for the first week, the 13th to 21st November, is milder than average. The second week will be a very different story. Precipitation anomalies from the 13th to the 21st of November. Again, much drier than average for the UK, for Ireland, for most of Europe as well, coming out substantially drier than average in the week ahead. Not much sign of any appreciable precipitation whatsoever. So, all important charts. This is how the GFS is looking for Friday. Still bringing up that very mild, even locally warm, southerly wind on Friday. Follow the isobars back. The air is coming up from the Mediterranean. And whilst the winds are light, so again, we could be generating mist, fog and low cloud. If the sun comes out, I think 17 or 18 degrees is achievable on Friday afternoon in that southerly wind. Very slight tilt in the isobars from southerly to southeasterly on Saturday means that it will just not be quite as mild or warm on Saturday. It's still well above average, I would have thought, on Saturday, but you see that those southerly winds are passing more towards the west of the UK. And really, the air is coming more sort of east of south, if you like. So coming more from that kind of area, which is not a particularly cold direction, but it will be a bit cooler on Saturday compared to Thursday and Friday. Then we tilt wind a little bit more. Notice on Sunday, we're not quite in an easterly, but certainly more of a southeasterly on Sunday. The air now is kind of originating from that sort of area on those southeast winds. Again, it's not a particularly cold cold direction, but it will be cooler. By Sunday, I think we'll find the temperature going back to average. Notice the high pressure up to 1,045 millibars over Scandinavia, so that's a very intense Scandinavian high that's getting itself going there. And then by the time we go through to Monday, we're actually seeing the wind tilting even more. So day by day, from Friday through to Monday, we gradually tilt the wind more and more, and by Monday, we are basically in an easterly wind. Won't be desperately cold, or won't be particularly cold on Monday, because the coldest of the air is originating now from kind of like here, the west of Russia, but it takes a little while to push that air across Europe. So again, just a day-by-day lowering of the temperature, really. We're probably a little bit cooler than average, I would have thought, particularly in the south and the east by Monday. And then into next week, it's a case of watching those easterly winds moving in across much of Europe, particularly affecting England and Wales and down across France with those east to northeast winds. Something interesting is happening with the high pressure, by the way. That's where the high pressure is on Monday, centered over Scandinavia. Watch where it is by Wednesday. The high pressure is retrogressing to Iceland and Greenland. Anybody who has been watching these videos over years will know one of the things we look for to tell us that we are in a prolonged blocked cold pattern is retrogression. The atmosphere, and yet retrogression is acting very abnormally. In a normal setup in the northern hemisphere, the wind and the pressure patterns will go from west to east in that sort of direction. That is the zonal flow, and it's the default setup for our part of the world, west to east. But when the zonal flow weakens enough, you can get retrogression, and that is when you take pressure patterns from east to west in that kind of direction. When that happens, it's one of the signals that something very abnormal is taking place within the atmosphere, because obviously, as zonal is the default setup, west to east, we shouldn't be going against the zonal flow. So it tells us that the zonal flow is very, very weak, and it allows pressure, particularly high pressure, to move from east to west. And that's happening there. Retrogression is on the way through next week, and this could well lock us in to a prolonged spell of pretty cold weather. So we've got 1,050 millibar area of high pressure over Iceland on Thursday next week. Very unusual weather patterns indeed. Notice we're starting to pull down some really cold air in towards Scandinavia on the eastern side of this high pressure. As it is, we're still bringing in a fairly cold east or northeast wind that may be producing some wintry showers for eastern parts of the country. That's how things are looking at day 10. Very blocked, pretty cold, really cold air beginning to surge down into northern and eastern parts of Scandinavia and Eastern Europe as well. In the more extended range, that high pressure is going nowhere fast, so we are locked into a cold spell of weather. This is not desperately cold. Stop, I have to emphasise that. We're not in the middle of winter. We're still very early in the season. But it's the weather pattern that is most unusual here, with high pressure locking us into this block setup. That's how we finish up with this GFS run, which is on Thursday, 29th of November. Still high pressure blocking out to the northwest of the country. It has now turned extremely cold across much of northern Europe, with plunges trough down into Scandinavia and into northeastern Europe as well. True Arctic conditions have engulfed much of northern Europe. Those are the upper air temperatures widely below -10. You see, the UK is just on the periphery of that extremely cold air, but it certainly does look poised, ready to take us into what could be a very cold start to November. To see such depth of cold across northern Europe in what is still November is very unusual indeed. So it could be that a big freeze is on the way by the end of November, much of northern Europe, with the UK kind of on the periphery of that, but certainly cold enough anyway in the UK for the time of the year. East MDF looks like this. So again, we've still got those warm southerly winds on Friday. Into a weekend, we start to bring cooler air in from the southeast as that high pressure builds itself up over Scandinavia. There we are into next week, into proper easterly winds. We're pushing some sort of disturbance across the south on Tuesday. That could be bringing rain, maybe a little bit of sleet or wet snow to southern parts of the country. Again, we're in that cold easterly wind. There's the upper air temperature. It's looking pretty cold, really, excuse me, for the 20th of November. Again, we see retrogression with the ECMWS. So let's go back to Monday. That's where the high pressure is on Monday, centered over Scandinavia. Look where the high pressure is by Wednesday and Thursday next week. Yes, it's gone from Scandinavia and it's moved to Iceland and Greenland. So both the GFS and the ECMWF are showing retrogression. There's no quick way out of that when you've got high pressure centered over Greenland and Iceland, like that, a true high pressure over Greenland and Iceland. There will be no quick way out. So that's still cold at that point and very blocked conditions indeed. And that's how we look at day 10, still locked into that very abnormal weather pattern with a blocking around Greenland and Iceland. The low pressure is underneath it. Follow the isobars back. The wind is originating kind of like from the far north of Russia, that sort of area, flooding down across much of Europe. There's the upper air temperatures showing the -10 isotherm is pushing out of Russia into Scandinavia. And whilst upper air temperatures aren't desperately cold for the UK and Ireland, it will certainly be pretty cold, I think that. With the prospect of possibly getting even colder as we run out beyond that. If we could go out beyond that, I suspect we would see the ECM turning things even colder there. So it does look as though quite a prolonged cold period is on the way. CFS V2, broken down to week periods, looking like this. These are the 500 millibar heights. First of all, for the 13th to the 19th of November, with the above average heights over and now just out a little bit to the northeast of the country, below average heights in the Atlantic, just there. The wind is going kind of southeasterly, so already starting to lower the temperature perhaps just a little bit. But it really is in week 2 that we set up those easterly winds. This is the 20th, 26th of November. Blocking high pressure between Greenland and Scandinavia, low pressure underneath it, and the wind coming around that high pressure is in that direction. So cold easterly winds flooding across Europe and into the UK. These conditions are maintained into week 3, 27th of November to the 3rd of December, has blocking high pressure over Greenland and extending back into the North Pole. Low pressure is riding underneath it. The jet stream is going to be down here somewhere. And we're still pulling in cold, or possibly even very cold air from the east or the northeast across much of Europe. And then we go through to week 4, which is the 4th, through to the 10th of December, with, again, below average heights down to the southwest, above average heights to the northeast. Looks like a bit of a battle could be taking place there. But low pressure down to the southwest is trying to bring milder air in from off the Atlantic, but that high pressure is trying to maintain cold easterly winds. And so on this divide between the cold easterly winds and the mild Atlantic winds, along that divide, there could of course be quite significant snow, and that may just be temporary snow before mild air breaks through and it turns milder. If the cold air hangs on and mild air never pushes through, that could be quite significant snow and lasting snow as well. So we would have to wait and see what happened there. And then the next thing we're going to look at is the temperature anomalies. So that's gone a little bit wrong. Let's go up to here and we start with weeks 1 and 2 temperature anomalies. So in week 1, we're still forecasting above average temperatures quite widely across the UK and many parts of Europe, coming out substantially warmer than average in week 1. Make the most of it though, because look what happens by week 2. The 20th to the 26th of November goes colder than average for the UK and much colder than average, with those blue colours appearing across many parts of Europe. That's temperatures going to 3 degrees or more below average. Week 3 had a sneak peek of it a moment ago. though, also looks much colder than average. The UK seeing temperature anomalies again down to around 3 degrees below average. And look how cold it is across most of Europe as well. We've got cold air surging out of Siberia and sort of covering with these blue colours all of Europe, even into the far west. That's really quite unusual to see that much depth and extent of cold. Again, going below 3 degrees below average quite widely. Week 4 is where it looked like that battle is beginning to take place. Still colder than average for the UK, particularly England and Wales. Most parts of Europe still colder than average as well, but not quite as cold as it is in weeks 2 and 3. This is before the 10th of December, but bear in mind it is possible that there could be quite significant snow as this milder air is trying to move in from off the Atlantic. And finally, in terms of the forecast for December, it looks like the CFS is just beginning to move a little bit now. This is the monthly 700 millibar height anomaly from the CFS V2 for December. And you'll notice it has increased the blocking signal quite a lot now to the north. It's got quite a northern blocking signal there around Iceland, between sort of Scandinavia and Greenland, particularly centred around Iceland, with the below average heights of low pressure through the middle of the Atlantic, leaving us doing something like that with the flow and with the jet stream. So again, the UK is in a bit of a battle situation there between the milder air trying to come in from off the Atlantic, but the cold air trying to be maintained by that blocking feature around Greenland and Iceland. It's going to be interesting to keep an eye on the CFS for December over the next few days, because CFS have been very, very set on having a mild and Atlantic-driven December. But that could just be the first signs that the model is being dragged kicking and screaming to something colder for December. We shall wait and see and keep an eye on it. But let's come back to the more immediate time frame, which is going to be the next week to 10 days. So we're starting mild. It's going to get milder. Expect temperatures to be around 17 or 18 degrees on Thursday or Friday if there's plenty of sunshine. Temperatures over the weekend will lower, not cold, but they will lower, back closer to average. By the early part of next week, I think we'll be back to average, maybe even a little bit colder than average. And then through next week, it probably gets colder through next week as those east to northeasterly winds are maintained. Over time, you'll probably notice them through next week becoming colder, increasing risk of night frost and potentially a little bit of wintry weather in there as well. I wouldn't be at all surprised to see a little bit of sleet or snow coming along at some point, particularly in the second half of next week. All that, of course, is to be determined as we get closer to the time frame. And it looks like we're locking into this cold spell. That's the most significant point of all of this within the video, really. There's not going to be a quick way out of this blocking. It's not going to be a case of the Scandinavian high collapsing down to the Black Sea like it often does and allowing the Atlantic back in. If anything, it just gets more and more blocked as we go into the last week of November and we retrogress that high pressure to Iceland and Greenland. All very, very interesting stuff, and we're going to keep you posted on it over the next few days at Gazwell, so keep checking back to all of the updates. Tomorrow, we've got the 5-day forecast, and we'll also have a look at the weather for next week, 10 days as well, bringing you up to date with the increasingly cold signals from the models. That's all for now, and thanks for watching.